Hello everybody, welcome back to 10 Minute Reviews. Jason here. Sorry it's been a little while since I posted a video. I'll try and make this pretty quick. Thank you to all of our patrons, all of our supporters. Really appreciate it. Don't forget to check the links down below for links to today's book and anything else that we might find applicable. I need to have some traffic through that Amazon thing that you guys suggest in order for it to keep going. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and jump right into today's video. So for today's video, I want to talk about the final two books, book 2 and book 3 so far, of Beneath the Ashes by Misty, Vixen and Jessica Threet. Talked about book 1 a while back, and I was originally going to talk about each one of these books separately, but a lot of things have come up, as I'm sure you guys have noticed. Haven't been able to post, and I read these a while ago, so they're not real clear in my memory. So I decided I'd just combine them instead of putting up a 2-minute video. So as you guys remember, we have Ethan, our protagonist, our main guy, and he's a crawler. We're in some kind of future world where some catastrophe had happened, some viral plague, some big wars, viruses, nukes, everything, but mostly biowarfare and biochemical warfare that pretty much wiped out surface life, so humanity retreated below ground. And they have these cities, these bastions that they've had and they've been surviving with, and their primary people, I suppose, that keep them safe are their crawlers. And their crawlers are people that go out into the dark. They go out into the tunnels. They go out underground, into the tunnels and caverns underground. Mostly they are exploring. They're trying to find old technology, patches of old technology, pieces of old technology that they can bring back to the city. And the city can then use it to advance their own technology or do whatever may need to be done. Also, the crawlers at times will go out. Sometimes things such as power sources or even water supplies may not be actually in the city. They may be further out away from the city, and the crawlers will have to go out and repair them. And of course, sometimes they have to go find the pieces to repair them with. In addition to that, the crawlers are also the defensive end. They're the primary defense for these bastions underground. So book 2 and book 3, we've got Ethan who's made it to this bastion, and he's been accepted in a little bit because of his father's name, a little bit because he's a crawler, and turns out he's a good one. He has like a natural instinct for it, you might even say. And then of course he's got his fugitive roommate. Now in this book he does manage to legitimize her, and part of that comes from how short-handed the crawlers are. One, how good Ethan is, but two, how incredibly short-handed the crawlers are, and all these emergencies that seem to be popping up, from medical emergencies to disease emergencies. And you got to imagine when you're inside an underground city, a bastion, it's kind of like being on a, you got to think it's like being on a space station, being on a cruise. One person gets sick, everybody gets sick. And that's kind of the problem within these bastions. They do, of course, have doctors and hospitals, but occasionally something can happen disease-wise that has a real threat to the entire bastion. Maybe it's a new disease, or even worse, a disease that is targeting the food supply. You know, just imagine if you're on a cruise ship and the only food you have has to be grown on this cruise ship. So you've got, you know, like a farming level or a garden level or something, and all of a sudden some new plant disease starts wiping out your food supply. You're gonna be a little bit of a panic at that point. So we have things like that going on, and because of what Ethan is able to do, and the fact that he is willing to continue going out into the dark, he eventually manages to legitimize his friend, I suppose his roommate, that, of course, this being a Misty Vixen novel, ends up being much more than a roommate, in addition to a few other people in his life, including 1 or 2 other crawlers, one of which happens to be probably the best crawler in the entire city. And then also we've got got his MILF, I suppose, this older lady that is a neighbor, I suppose. Now, initially, Ethan gets given a residence in basically the slums. They're basically the slums, and they are about what you would expect for a slum. And they're kind of typical in fantasy-esque novels in that it's also kind of the lower class and sort of left alone, crime-ridden, disease-ridden, nobody really helping, no resources given to it, and especially when you've got this underground city that has to be juggled. It's like playing SimCity, and you only have so many resources, so much that you could do, so many people, for one. And then we get and then we also have book 3, and in book 3 it gets a little bit interesting because Ethan has to return to home. He has to return to the bastion that he had fled from, the one that was overrun, that everybody died, and Ethan somehow managed to live and managed to flee all the way to the bastion that he currently resides in. Now, it's interesting, the more we learn about these little bastions, they talk about, these traveling merchants that will come around and how they go to different bastions, and they talk about how some are huge and veritable cities, and some are smaller, a few thousand people, still considered a good size bastion. Because again, you have these resource problems. We're underground, so there's a lot that needs to be kept for people to survive. And the more people you have, the more resources. So Ethan has to go back to where he came from. And this is what's interesting. The bastion he came from, you wouldn't even necessarily call it a city, especially underground, but it'd kind of be the equivalent of, not even a town, of a village. We're talking a bastion that had 100 people, 150 people, very, 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 very small. Not so small that it couldn't self-sustain itself, but very, 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 very small regardless. Not like the full-blown city or, town, borderline city of the bastion he is currently in. Ethan also discovers a few things, such as the creatures appear to be getting smarter. He notices they're laying traps and coordinating a little bit better, which gets pretty interesting. And along with this, Ethan is also looking at his home, that ghetto that we talked about. It's called the Pit. And Ethan now, because of his rising status as one of the best crawlers and someone who's saved the city of the Bastion a few times, he's got a pretty high status. So he gets offered a chance to move to another better domicile. He's making more money-ish, what they use for money is making more tokens. And so he has this opportunity to continue to rise. Now that his roommate/girlfriend has been legitimized, she can go with him. She can also work legitimately, make her own money. And what they end up doing instead is they decide they want to stay in the Pit, but they make agreements. They get with the governor, the mayor, whoever runs the Bastion. They get a meeting with her, plus a meeting with the leader of the crawlers, and they make a deal. They want to not restore the Pit, but they want to rise the Pit up. Everyone that lives within the Pit itself, they want to help improve it. They want to gentrify it, basically. And they make some agreements. They get a building that they can use and convert into a hospital, but they have to find and hire their own doctors, their own nurses. They have to find their own supplies, things along those lines. They'll get a little bit of support here and there from the leaders, but for the most part, it's on them. So this entire series, or trilogy rather, I don't know if there'll ever be a book 4, and I'm not sure it's really necessary. Well, we have a few little plot lines, some weird things, some weird beasts and beings, and the fact that the animals or the monsters are getting smarter. For the most part, this really, really feels like kind of a slice of life trilogy, and it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad at all. Of course, harem lit, things along those lines. Most of you guys have already read Misty Vixen, so you know what kind of book she writes. I don't need to go too much into that. Overall, it's just fun. It was just fun. It was a good light read for me one day when I was having trouble finding something else to read, and just a lot of fun. So thank you everybody for watching. We will catch you guys next time. Bye now.